But I just wanted to introduce Jesse and Nate and Rick, and they are going to be doing some martial arts demonstration for us today. But I think Jesse will probably just give you more information about what they do.
Yes. Good afternoon. It's a blessing to be here. My name is Jesse Boyd. I'm from the United States, and this is Nate. And he's from my hometown in North Carolina. And we're friends of Ricky. I think some of you know Ricky. He's come up here and just spent some time fellowshipping with you all. We're here today to do a martial arts demonstration. I know some of you do Tai Chi. Tai Chi is a martial art. And the exercises you do, hidden within those movements, are actually some very effective ways for someone to defend themselves. So this will kind of give you an understanding today of some of the things that are behind Tai Chi. Not only is it a good exercise, but martial arts are a great way to learn how, particularly for children or women, to learn how to defend themselves against a mugger or someone that wants to bring them harm. And I hear that's a real possibility here on the streets of Cape Town, just as it is in my hometown. And so it's amazing how we have this human body of ours that God made is so complex. And God's given us tools that we can use to actually defend ourselves, and it doesn't have to be strength. A lot of the things we do don't require strength. And if my opponent is strong, that's to my advantage. The stronger they are, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. And so we're going to put on a little demonstration today just to entertain you. And when we're finished, if you want to ask some questions or whatever, we're happy to hang around and just fellowship with you for a while. The name of my school is Kata Valley Martial Arts. It's in Hickory, North Carolina. The style of martial arts I teach is called Cheonjikido. The original teacher in our lineage was from Korea prior to World War II. And the very first dojo was in Seoul, Korea in the 1940s. The very first instructor in my heritage went missing in the Korean War, and his school was taken over by his primary student, and later it came to the United States. And my instructor, who is dead, he died in a tragic farming accident a few years ago, and leaves me kind of behind, kind of a tough place to be. He studied some different arts and brought it in. And one of the things we think is important in martial arts is what I call integration. There's many different styles. There's actually a style of martial arts that comes from Israel. Did you know that? Does anybody know the name of it? They use it in the Israeli military. It's called Krav Maga. Anybody ever heard of that? Some really interesting things about how to disarm a knife or a gun.
What's it called again?
Krav Maga. And so they use this in the Israeli military. There's martial arts from Japan, China, Okinawa, some from the United States. And so integration is where you see that there's value in many different martial arts. You use the good stuff and you throw away the bad. So every art, Tai Chi, Cheonjikido, has good and has bad. You want to bring it together. It's not like one way is right. There's many different ways to use it. So some of the things you're going to see today actually are taken from principles of Krav Maga, the Israeli martial arts. So you might find that interesting. But we study different martial arts and try to bring it together and use it to create an effective means of self-defense. And so I've studied this art here for about 25 years, close to 25 years. I've also studied the art of Aikido. I've studied the Korean art of Cheonjikido. And so it's been interesting to see different philosophies and to bring them together in an integrated whole. So what you see today represents several different martial arts, and I hope it will be a source of enjoyment for you. And so I have class 2 times a week. I have a small class right now, about 6 students. 6 students, 1, 2, 3, 6 students. My daughter is actually one of my students, so it's fun to train with my daughter. And we hope we never, ever, ever, ever have to use this.
How old is your daughter?
My daughter's 10 years old.
Nice, good.
I have a 10-year-old, a 6-year-old daughter, and then a 4-year-old son. So the others aren't quite old enough yet to study. But we never want to use this. There's only 2 times I would use this: if my life is in danger or the life of someone else is in danger. I have a responsibility, I believe, before God to help someone whose life is in danger, or to protect myself if my life is in danger. But even sometimes, maybe that's not the best thing. Sometimes it's best to just let the Lord fight for you. That's what Israel did at the Red Sea. You remember that story when Moses brought the people of Israel out of Egypt and they came to the Red Sea and Pharaoh and his chariots were coming? What did the Lord tell the people through Moses? Stand still, I will fight for you. So sometimes it's best just to let the Lord fight for you. So you never want to use it. I've never really had to use it. I've been close, but there's been a way out of it. So we train, and hoping we never have to use it. It's not like anything else. When you train in a sport, you want to use it. When you train in mechanics or engineering, you want to use it. Martial arts is one of the few activities you train hard, but you never want to use it. So anyway, we'll get started this morning, but before I start, I wanted to share with you an interesting passage from the Tanakh, because I think martial arts is even in the Bible, and it's in the history of Israel. From the Tanakh, this is the book of Samuel. Okay, this is in the Nevi'im, from the book of Samuel. Who knows the story of King David when he was a young shepherd boy, and he came down to see Israel on the field of battle against the Philistines? You remember what happened there? It tells us this in the book of Samuel. And Saul armed David with his armor, and he put a helmet of brass upon his head, and he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. In other words, the armor was too heavy. He couldn't use it. And David said unto Saul, I cannot go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. And he took his staff in his hand, and chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook, and put them in a shepherd's bag which he had. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And then later it says, David put his hand in his bag, and he took thence a stone, and he slung it, and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon his face to the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone. Now that's an amazing story where young King David took a small stone, just one stone, and a slingshot, and he had a staff. Very practical tools that he used in the shepherd's field. And he was able to use a small stone and put it right between the eyes of that giant, and he fell to the earth. So there's a lesson there. Victory isn't always in strength. Victory isn't always in size. Victory for David was by the power of the God of Israel, by the power of Hashem. And David used a simple tool to bring down a strong opponent. And that's really what martial arts is about, using simple tools like our hands. Have you heard the word karate before? Yeah. Karate comes from the Japanese language. It simply means empty hand. Empty hand. How to use the empty hand. We actually use weapons that we train with in our style. One of them is a staff, just like David had, just a staff. And we can use this to defend ourselves. And so the story of David is an example of how a weaker, smaller opponent can defeat a strong, mighty giant. And so a lot of the techniques we're going to use today don't require strength. You'll see Nate is taller than me. I'm not a real strong guy. He's not real strong. But yet we can bring each other down to the ground. One of the first things we do when we practice martial arts we call kata. And if you do Tai Chi, you know what kata is. It's the forms and the motions you do. Sometimes it looks like a dance. So Nate's going to demonstrate one of our katas for you today. This is an old kata that goes all the way back to the early part of the 1900s. It comes from Korea. We call it Pyeongdan Il. Nate's going to demonstrate this to you, and everything is important. Every movement of his feet, the motion of his arms, the speed, the rhythm, everything's important. And then after he demonstrates, I'm going to show you how we can apply some of those movements to a self-defense situation.
If we yell, we're going to be in the way.
Well, you may, ma'am, if you don't mind, I've got a camera filming, and so if you can maybe come over, that would be helpful if you don't mind. Thank you for asking. And I certainly wouldn't want to run into you. So if you all go over there, we'll fall over here and nobody will get hurt.
Okay.
I'd hate to trip and fall and hurt myself and someone else.
Oh, dear.
No, I can't see anything now.
Hang on, I'll move.
No, but what use is
I'll go sit
that?
over there.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. We're informal here. We're not, this is not a professional thing. We're just here to have a good time.
Me.
We will.
Can we listen to him or not?
I'll beg your pardon. I'm so sorry.
All right. Okay. Okay. Nate's going to demonstrate for you one of our katas. This is an old one called Pyondan Il. Eyes. Eyes. That's a one-man kata. That's a really old one called Pyondan Il, and one of our very first instructors from Korea taught that kata. It looks very simple. It looks like some simple movement, but there's some very interesting technique hidden within it. Every kata has technique hidden within it. And it's our job as instructors to discover that and bring it out. We call that in Japanese bunkai. It means application. So Nate can do this kata, but he has to know how to apply it in a situation on the street. So I want to show you a couple of examples of how we can apply movement from that kata. I'm going to put the microphone down.
Do you ever break into a sweat? Do you exercise?
Oh yes. Oh yes. And we'll try to, we do 10, 15, 20 katas sometimes. And so you do it one after another. It's great cardiovascular exercise. All right, we're going to pull the mat out because this might get a little bit ugly. Okay, just stand here. One of the first things you saw Nate do in his kata is he turns here, he goes here, and this way. If my attacker were to grab my arm here, all I need to do is trap and go here, here. And the places that I'm striking on his body are going to cause problem. I'm striking here on a pressure point. This pressure point attacks the large intestine of the body. I'm coming here, pinning the foot on a pressure point that attacks the gallbladder. And then I step through and I attack the gallbladder point a second time. And if I do that correctly, it will knock him out. The body has meridians that are along the nervous system that deal with different organs in the body. And every meridian has what we call pressure points. Places where if you press on them, they hurt. And each meridian focuses on a different organ. It's amazing the human body that God has created. And we can use these pressure points not only to bring healing like acupuncture or acupressure, but we can use them to destroy or to defend ourselves. And so we don't only hit in the face or in the stomach or in the groin. There's other places we can use. And in this technique, I'm using pressure points to affect the knockout, and that comes right out of the kata. So something very advanced right out of the kata. Another interesting technique, you saw this motion here, and he went here. If an opponent is grabbing me from behind, maybe he's going to pull me in here and punch me. Once I feel him grab, I'm going to trap the hand, and I'm striking another pressure point right here on the spleen. Then I'm going to come up and cut into here, drop it. So there you see an application of this move. Somebody asked me earlier, do you have names for the different techniques? Yes, we do. One of the very first things you learn as one of my students is how to block a punch. And the very first block we teach is a rising block. You saw the rising block in this kata. Nate, demonstrate that for the folks today. That's a rising block. He's blocking an overhead attack. Okay? This is also a very dangerous strike. A block is not always a block. If Nate had, let's say that Nate has a knife. We use a wooden knife just to be safe. Step right here. And let's say he wants to come and attack me. I can use a rising block to take him straight to the ground. Like so. Okay? So there's a lot of different applications there. So that's just a little bit of a taste of how the kata can be used to affect a self-defense technique. Now, somebody who does Tai Chi, you do Tai Chi, do you want to, can you show me one of the moves and I'll show you how to apply that?
You're good.
Just show me one of the moves from your katas.
Some of the moves.
Just show me what it looks like and then I'll apply it where Nate is concerned.
Then we'll say, this is the cloud. The cloud arm.
Okay. So you're here,
The cloud.
Here?
Yeah.
the cloud,
It's all
right?
simple, and then this.
Here.
And we do a lot of breathing.
Right. Breathing is so important. So you've got this motion.
This, and that motion this way, and that way. And
Okay.
this way.
Okay. I'm gonna demonstrate an application of this cloud motion here.
Yeah,
So what you have is you have this outside motion followed by this motion.
yeah.
If Nate were to grab me, I can use this outside motion. Watch this. I'm going to come under and effect a break of the arm. Here. And I'll knock him out. Okay?
Like in, excuse me, in judo, for example, when he's falling down all the time because you've attacked him naturally, you're going to teach people also how to fall in case you get attacked.
That's one of the very first things our students learn. And that's a great question. I'll demonstrate a fall for you here in a moment if you'd like to see. That's a great question. Very first thing we teach is how to fall. How to block, how to fall. Now you also have this motion here. The Chinese call that yin-yang. You're working in two different directions. If Nate were to grab me, I can use this motion and this motion and go opposite directions here. Okay? Now if I try to go the same direction, it's hard. It's hard. But if I go opposite, he can't fight both directions at once. If he were to grab me from behind, another application of this cloud motion. I go both ways here. So that's how you can apply a kata. So thanks for showing that. That's great. Next thing I want to do, this is a two-man kata. Okay, Nate demonstrated a one-man kata. It comes from Changmu Kwan, a Korean style. Now we're going to do a two-man kata. This kata called Koryudai Ni comes from Japanese Aikido. So this is a different style of martial arts, and it's a two-man kata. Nate's going to attack me once right after another, and I have to do specific techniques to defend myself against various attacks. Okay? So we're going to go one right after another. Koryudai Ni has 16 techniques that are supposed to be one right after another. So I have to be on my toes. Okay? We'll kind of use the mat. We may move around so Nate doesn't hit the floor so hard. Okay. Bow.
doing. And
He's
you
coming.
land on the floor a bit.
It's coming. It's coming, trust me. I got to get him a little bit angry. Once he gets that little mad, then he's going to make his teacher fall. Now, something that's very important. If you noticed when Nate was attacking me, how was my demeanor? I was calm. We say living calmness is one of the very important principles of Aikido. You cannot be frightened. You cannot be scared. You cannot be tense, or it doesn't work. If you read the Tanakh, who knows the Proverbs of Solomon, the king? That's in the writings, the Ketubim, right? Solomon the king said this: he that has no control over his spirit is like a city that is broken down without walls. That's wise, right? If we get angry all the time, or we get tense or lose our focus, we're like a city broken down without walls. We want to be like Moses. Moses was meek. We want to be like Abraham. He was calm and he trusted God when God told him to do something. We want to be wise like King Solomon. And the way we are these things, number one, is the fear of the Lord. The Bible, the Tanakh tells us the fear of the Lord, the fear of the God of Israel is the beginning of wisdom. But it says to have control over our spirit. So I like that verse in Proverbs because it tells us what we need to be in martial arts. We must be calm. I can't panic. Panic is your worst enemy. If somebody pulls a gun on me and I panic, I'm already in trouble. So it's so important to be calm. And that's what you saw demonstrated there. You're going to see Nate do the same thing. So being calm. And that's exactly the way the Lord wants us to be, to have control over our spirit. So that's something I thought you might find interesting. We have another type of training we do. You've seen Kata. The next thing we're going to demonstrate is called ippon kumite. Ippon kumite means two-step fighting. And the way we're going to start is I'm going to start out throwing a punch at Nate. And he's going to do some techniques that he has to learn at his rank. And then he's going to turn around and we're going to show you a different type of ippon kumite that's more fluid. And so in our martial art, we value power and fluidity. You want a perfect balance of power and fluidity in the way you react. And so Nate's going to demonstrate the power side. I'm going to demonstrate the fluidity. And our objective is to bring that together. So we're going to let Nate show you some ippon kumite. I'm going to move this out of the way. Yes! 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 Those are the first 15 of our ippon kumite. They focus on power, blocking, and striking. We learn those on the right-hand side and on the left-hand side because we want to have perfect balance between right and left. I'm going to demonstrate for you the third set of our ippon kumite. This comes from Aikido and it's fluid. We call this the 17 or Randori no Kata. This could be from a push, it could be from a grab, or it could be from a punch. And so Nate's just going to attack me like so. And any of these techniques can be applied, whether the opponent's got a knife, a bare hand, a stick, a punch, a push, whatever. So these are going to get a little bit more. You want to use the mat? Let's put it behind you. So this is called Randori no Kata, or the 17 ippon kumite. Now, got a little close there for you.
Yeah.
I was watching.
I've got my thing.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was watching. And then I would normally throw Nate, and he would tumble through the wall, but we're not going to do that. We normally throw him through the wall, but we don't want to damage the wall. So that's an example of some of the power ippon kumite and the fluid ippon kumite. We have another set of 15 that's very like that. We have another set where the opponent just runs at you with all his might. We step out of the way and take him down. We have a set of ippon kumite where we defend against the knife. We have a set where we defend against a gun. And it all equals about right at 100. He has to learn 100 ippon kumite on the right and the left to get a black belt. Plus 20 kata. He has to learn. So, it's a lot. Nowadays, in the old days when they first invented martial arts, you had to worry about defending in Japan against a sword. They were sword fighters. And a lot of the techniques we do with an empty hand come from sword fighting technique. Nowadays, you have a greater chance of winning the lottery than you do to get attacked by a sword. Nobody uses swords anymore. But they use knives and guns. This isn't a real gun, by the way. So we want to learn how to defend ourselves against a knife attack or a gun attack. And so we have ippon kumites that address this, and we just thought we'd demonstrate how to defend against a knife. It's not much different than defending against an unarmed opponent. It's the same principles. Same thing with a gun. With a knife, I need to make sure that my life is in danger. If he's going to kill me, then I need to defend myself. But if all he wants is my wallet, here, take it. It's not worth taking a chance. When you defend against a knife, you're always going to get cut. You just want to make sure you're not cut here or on your wrist or in here. But you don't want to take that risk unless you have to. So if all he wants is my wallet, if I'm walking down the streets of Cape Town, whether it's in Sea Point or downtown, and they come up and hold a knife and say, give me your money or give me your watch, I'm just going to give him my watch. It's not worth it. But if that's not good enough, then I might have to do something. Same thing with a gun. It's actually easier if the gun is close to you. It's easier to defend against a gun than it is a knife. Because the gun requires pressure to fire it. And all you need is to deflect it about this far to save your head from getting blown off. You may lose your hearing, but you'll save your face from getting blown off. But a knife, you can get cut. And if you're cut in the wrong place, it's dangerous. So we're going to do some knife defense for you. I'm going to attack Nate. We have a set of 20 here. Nate's going to do the first 10, and I'm going to do the last 10. And hopefully this will entertain you a bit. Let's switch around here. When I tap, that means it hurts. That tells Nate to let go because I'm in pain. And number 10. Okay. That was the first 10. Now I'm going to demonstrate the next 10. Look, sir, I don't want any trouble. I'll give you my watch. Get over here. Look, sir, what do you want?
Give me your wallet.
I don't want to give you my wallet. I'm going to do that one again, because if I do it right, the knife will come out of his hand. Now he can do nothing. It's all over. Okay. That's how to defend against the knife. Now we'll show you a few gun techniques. The gun, in America, the criminals have guns just like South Africa, but the law-abiding citizens can also have guns. And that protects the law-abiding citizen. That's our philosophy as Americans. A little bit different in the rest of the world. Some people differ, but we have the freedom to carry a gun to protect ourselves or our family. But again, you never want to use it. I'd rather not use a gun. I don't want to kill somebody. I'd rather let God sort that out. I just want to protect myself. So a gun usually is a lot heavier than this. And if it's heavy, it's easy to get out of the way. All I have to do is put my hands up and get out of the way. If he fires the gun, I'm safe. However, I need to be mindful of who may be standing around. I don't want an innocent person to get hurt. So I, in defending myself, have to remember these things. This is where some of the principles from Israeli Krav Maga come in. So you're going to see a little taste of some of the things they teach in the Israeli military, how to disarm a gun. Okay? What's really important, if Nate's going to attack me, I want to distract him. I want to put my hands up because that puts them close to where I can disarm him. But I want to distract his mind. So I teach my students, before you act, you want to talk to him. Look, sir, I don't want any trouble. Tell me what you want. I don't want any trouble. And right before I move, I'm going to say something to Nate that's completely random. It makes no sense. I may even use another language. Because what happens is it takes him a moment to think, what is he saying? And during that moment, I act. So you're going to see me make some random statements or maybe speak another language. And you'll see Nate, every human being is going to try to think or interpret. And in that quick moment, I'm going to act. Look, Nate, I don't want any trouble. What are you so angry about? Sensei ta. Look, I don't want any trouble. Let's go for a hike on Table Mountain. Now why are you starting trouble here in the Highland house? These are nice folks. We're just doing a demonstration. I didn't think it would be raining in Cape Town this time of year. So not only have I taken the gun away, I have the gun. And I can empty it out and we're safe. What do you want? What's the problem? It's hot in here. Look, this one's real easy. You are going to get your arm broken. Don't need strength. No strength. This one's a little more difficult. I'm going to turn, and then I got the gun away from me. Here. He goes behind. It's the same thing. I want to talk to him. Look, sir, I don't want any trouble. I don't want to hurt you. Cape Town is such a beautiful city. See, now the gun's pointed at him. He's going to be very careful not to fire it. Then I can take it away. So we're talking about all different scenarios. Maybe he walks up from the side. Look, I don't want any trouble. Here. Look, Nate, this is ridiculous. Now, Nate knows not to put his finger in the trigger because the finger with these techniques will get broken. And it'll tear it up. It might tear it off. So Nate's not putting his finger in here because he knows these techniques will hurt. Now, what if I'm one-armed? What if I've been shot in the arm, or maybe my family's here and I'm trying to keep them safe? I've got to be able to use one arm. Nate can't hold on to it. It's the other arm. Look, I don't want any trouble. Here. No strength. In America, a lot of the gangs, like the black gangs, they like to hold a gun like this. We call it gangster. So I've got to be prepared. But it's the same thing. I just turn it back toward him. It's the same thing as before. I'm just going to turn that barrel back toward him, and the gun's in my hand. The reason this works, and one of the principles that comes from Krav Maga, is what we call two-way action. Nate points the gun. I'm pushing up, and I'm pulling down. Two-way action. That's why you don't need strength. If I try to do this, or just this, it's strong. But Nate can't fight both forces, down and up at the same time. This is a principle of the Israeli disarming tactics. Here. See how effective that is? Israel's got some of the top military stuff in the world. They've got the world's best Air Force, and they've got some really good combat defense. So we like to use that a little bit. Those are principles. That's a kata that's designed, one of my Aikido instructors designed, but it's based on those Krav Maga principles. So that's how to defend against a gun. I wouldn't do it unless I had to. Wouldn't do it unless I had to. Okay? One thing, we have kata, ippon, kumite, knife, and gun defense, but then we have another part we call Randori. And when we practice in class or the student tests for promotion, he needs to know how to defend himself when he doesn't know what the attacker is going to do. We call this Randori. So in a test, I'll come up and I'll attack Nate however I want to attack him. He doesn't know. I may punch him, I may grab him, I may use a knife. He has to defend himself. We call that Randori. So I'm just going to attack Nate with some grabs, and we're going to watch him react, whatever comes to his mind. I'm just going to throw a few punches at him. Oh, you all right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's got to be ready. Oh. All right. Nate, you want to attack me a little bit? Sure. Nate's going to attack me. Two-way action. If he grabs me around the throat, I go this way and pull back. He can't stop it. So he's going to go tight. All right. So that wasn't planned. That was just we sweat. We sweat. Yes, I am. Okay. The last thing we'll demonstrate for you today is what we call kumite. This is where we actually put on gloves and feet and we fight each other. This is a way to build your speed and your reflexes and to learn what it feels like to get hit. If I don't know what it feels like and somebody hits me on the street, I'm going to be stunned. But if I know how to take a hit, it won't faze me on the street. So we're going to use a little equipment here. Excuse me. And yeah, you see we sweat a little bit. He'll give us a moment to put these on. Now. Good. good. Stop.
Oh, that was
Why are the shoes raised?
They just provide a little padding, so if you get hit in the face, it doesn't hurt too bad, and it protects your feet.
Sir, have you ever thought about how a person in a wheelchair, if it could have been,
the sticky one.
A lot of these techniques would work from a sitting position.
you could do it from a sitting
Yes. In
position?
fact, I've seen a very experienced martial artist who is in a wheelchair do some techniques that were pretty interesting. For instance, let me just get a chair here, and I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. If Nate attacks me standing up, put it like this, I can block here. Similar principle would work here, and I could use, maybe I'm just seated. I'm not in a wheelchair, but I'm seated. And he comes to attack, I can use the chair to my advantage. But maybe I can't get out of my chair. Maybe he's going to come and attack me and I'm in the wheelchair. Here, see how wide open he is? And then if I use proper pressure points, I can pull him into me and take him down. Or I might even be able to use the wheelchair against him. So you might have to change things a little bit, but the principles still work. It's a good question. We actually practice defense out of a chair or up against a wall. If I'm up against a wall, I can't move backwards. So I can't take him back like I would do if there was no wall, but I can take him into the wall here. So we practice those things actually. The Japanese, the old Aikido masters, part of their kata was done down here. Because they would sit like this when they ate or when they had a meeting. And so there was a real possibility of someone attacking you while you're seated. And they would do techniques. Do a yokomen chop with the right hand. As you go. See, I go from a seated position and do the exact same thing. If he were to throw a punch with the right hand. Here, I can turn him over here, just like I would do if I was standing up. So a lot of the principles work. Well, that's all we were going to demonstrate for you today. Does anybody have any questions? I hope you enjoyed that. One of the things about martial arts, a basketball player, when he grows old, he has to retire. The best martial artists are the ones that have gray hair, have a few wrinkles, elderly. The older you get, the better you get, because you understand. You learn how to understand how the human body works and what your strengths and weaknesses are. The most important weapon that I have as a martial artist is not my fist, it's not my feet, it's my mind.
Right.
And the mind is what tells you when to fly or when to fight. And in order to do that, you got to put away that pride sometimes. Sometimes my pride wants to fight to show that I'm a man. But the right thing to do is to leave. So to be a good martial artist, you got to be able to put away that pride. And that's a hard thing to do. In fact, the Tanakh tells us that pride goes before a fall. The same Solomon that's... Okay, God bless you, sir. Thanks for coming. The same pride, or the same Solomon that said no control over your spirit is like a city that goes broken down, is the same Solomon that said pride goes before destruction. So it's always good to put away pride. Before we end, I want to share one more thing with you. from the Tanakh. I just think this is an amazing example. Sometimes I forget to open my Hebrew Bible on the right side. And then I'm opening it up to 2 Chronicles instead of Genesis. Now, I told you a story earlier. You know this, of how God delivered Israel from Egypt, right? And they came out of Egypt when God sent the angel of death through the Passover on the 14th of Nisan. And when they came out, Pharaoh's army pursued Egypt to the Red Sea. And they looked like they were going to perish because they were trapped between the army and the sea, right? Pharaoh's host had chariots. There was no way Israel could fight them. They were going to perish. But Moses said, here in Exodus chapter 14, listen to this. Moses said unto the people, do not fear. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show you today. For the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will see them again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you will hold your peace. You know, martial arts is great. It's nice to train. It's nice to be good and to feel confident. But if the Lord is not on our side, we cannot win. Goliath was mighty. He had a sword that David could hardly lift. And he mocked the God of Israel. And Goliath fell at the hands of a shepherd boy. You see, if the Lord's not on our side, it's fruitless. And so one of the things I teach my students, number one, never start a fight. If I hear that one of my students started a fight, there's going to be a problem. And then I also teach them to realize sometimes, just like Israel in the desert, the best defense is no defense. To let God handle it. That is a lesson we have to be mindful of. For instance, I was in a foreign country one time, and a man was harassing me on the streets, and he was pushing me. And I thought, well, I could fight, but I'm not in America. I don't have a constitution. I don't have rights here. And if the police come, they may say, oh, he's a white man, he's an American, we're going to put him in jail. So it was better for me to do nothing and let the man harass me, because my life wasn't in danger, than to satisfy my pride, beat him up, and then I get in trouble with police in a foreign country and I may not get to go home. You have to be smart. I'd rather let the Lord fight for me. He can win a battle far easier than I can. Story after story in Israel's history, God told Israel to stand still. Remember Gideon and the Midianites? God took 300 men and told them to break pots and to watch, and the Midianites killed each other. King Jehoshaphat, the godly king of Israel, went to battle. God said, stand still. And the host fought each other and killed each other. So it's always better to let the Lord fight for us. And when I speak of the Lord, I'm speaking of the God of Israel, the true God. Hashem, Adonai. Right? You know one of the reasons why I enjoy coming here today? And I want to tell you all this before I leave. I have much love in my heart for the nation of Israel. I'm not Jewish, but I love the Jewish people. You know why I, as a Gentile, love the Jewish people? Because God gave the Word of God to mankind through the Jewish people. And because of the Jewish people who heard God's words and wrote them down, I, an American, can know about the God of Israel. I can know about the Messiah. And I can put my trust in the God of Israel. So I want to thank you today for allowing me to just do this for you. It's an honor for me. It's an honor for Nate, for Ricky, because of our love for the Jewish people. So I just want you all to know that, how thankful we are that God gave the world the Jewish people. And so don't think, there may be people that do not like the Jewish people, but there are a lot of people like myself in America that do. And I'm thankful that America has been a friend of Israel, and I hope we always will be. And so that's why it's an honor for me to be here. Again, sometimes the best defense is no defense at all. And that's something they don't teach in a lot of martial arts, because it's all about fighting. We saw that from Moses. I think of another story, and I want to end today with this. I'm compelled to share this with you. I don't know if you've ever read any of the stories in the Berit Hadashah. That's a Jewish book. All of the writers of the Berit Hadashah were Jewish. And they tell a story of Yeshua in there. Yeshua went to the Garden of Gethsemane one night to pray. And the people came to arrest him. And Peter, Simon Peter, one of Yeshua's disciples, pulled out a sword. And he went to fight. And he slung that sword and accidentally cut the ear off of one of the high priest's servants. And what Yeshua said to Simon, he said, "Put away your sword. He that lives by the sword will die by the sword." If all you want to do is fight, you're going to eventually die at the hands of a stronger opponent. And then Yeshua said this, "Peter, don't you understand that I have the power to call down 10 legions of angels if I wanted to? But that the scriptures might be fulfilled, I go." And so in those moments, Yeshua chose not to defend himself. I believe he had the power to. I believe Yeshua is Mashiach. He's changed my life. But he chose not to. And he did it for the good of the world. He did it to fulfill the prophecies. And he did what was right. And sometimes what is right may bring hurt to us. But it's right. In fact, in the Tanakh, Solomon also says a righteous man swears to his own hurt and does not change. If we give our word, we should keep it. Sometimes the right thing brings us hurt. And for the sake of the truth, for the sake of glorifying God, we should do what's right no matter what happens. And so that's what we try to govern everything we do in martial arts. I only have one master in my life. It's not my karate teacher. Nate's master is not me. The only master in my life is Yeshua HaMashiach. And because I love Yeshua, and because I love the God of Israel, we love the people of Israel. Thank you for coming today. God bless you folks. We have some, if anybody doesn't have their own copy of the Tanakh, the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, the Ketuvim, the Nevi'im, we'd like to give you one. It's Hebrew and English. So if you want one, you can just take one. It's free. We love to share the Hebrew Bible with the Jewish people.